Hello and welcome to Marlins After Dark. I'm your host, Sean Millerick. After all, no team keeps you up late at night like the Miami Marlins. And tonight it is all on adrenaline because let's be honest, folks, 4,700 games, 2 World Series championships, 6 no-hitters, 1 Cy Young, 1 MVP, 4 Rookies of the Year, the best postseason winning percentage in Major League history, even a batting champion. And it took until tonight to get the first cycle in Marlins history. I'm joined tonight by Alex Carver just to do a brief reaction pod and gush about this momentous event. Yeah, obviously it's just one game in the standings, but my heart is still racing over this. Alex, how are you feeling?
No, this is awesome, man. I, like you, grew up with the Marlins and saw so many of these occasions where they got a hit shy and we're all freaking out. And it's like, oh my God, they could actually do it tonight. They could actually do it. And it didn't come until today, where it's 30 years into this team and I'm going on 36 years old. It didn't come until today where Luis Arraez, newcomer, first-year guy, that I think they must extend. This guy has been their best player so far this year. If there's one guy you need to extend, I would say it's him. Man, this guy's – I don't care that it's so early in the season. Extend this man. He's good. He's good for the team. He has a great attitude. He's funny. He's a good clubhouse guy. And, man, tonight he showed his full worth. Man, that home run, like that's what you don't expect from Arraez. And he gets an opposite field home run. Crazy how he did it. But, yeah, just shows his complete worth to the team. He's done it all year so far. Through what the Marlins have been through already this year, this has been their most consistent and best player. And tonight it kind of permeated into history, which is really cool to see.
Absolutely. I mean, and just tearing the cover off the ball early. And so just, checking his stats, setting up for this pod, saw him like, all right, batting 500, 557 on base percentage. And then I realized that's going into tonight. That, slugging percentage looked a little lighter without that one home run that we now got in the column. But yeah, 500 batting average on 571 on base, leading baseball in both categories by a lot. National League leader in hits. Obviously, that pace isn't sustaining itself, but do we think that do I feel confident that if he's healthy all year, that he's going to hit over 300 for this Marlins team? Well over 300? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to last. He's be the best hitter we've seen in well over a decade. I think on this Marlins roster, we're going to have to go. For me, it's going back to Castillo or Juan Pierre, where we've got a guy who you feel this confident that he will produce a hit of some caliber. But so that just took until today. It's crazy. Just starting to see some of the stats flying around online. So Jason Stark tweeted out 548 players even in the Marlins. One crazy way to look at this. And yeah, it's one of those stats that you don't. I mentioned all the other great things the Marlins have done. If you get an alert on your phone that there's a no-hitter in progress, then like that, that you can watch, right? You can tune in, make sure you catch some of that. Obviously a championship run, you're going to be able to experience that. But the cycle, this, kind of this obscure event where it's, all right, maybe, are you going to see that? And just as it's became this running joke, as they became the last team to need one, it's like I had just kind of just accepted that I'm never going to watch this happen live. This is going to happen if my kid's recital or something. I'm going to have to do like a quiet little fist pump when I see an alert go out from Fish Stripes or something, that there's a psycho alert. And that I'm just able to follow this game on TV. So I think that's part of why I'm so excited, is that I was actually able to watch it happen and not just read about it the next morning.
Yeah, it's funny you bring it up because the first time they won the World Series, I actually moved to San Diego, California in 1997. Actually in August, which was just before the Marlins won their first World Series. So, and then I was still out there in 2003. So, of course, I watched on TV and listened on the radio. But, yeah, like you said, to be able to catch this, even though it was on TV for me as well, to be able to catch it live and, for a team that we followed as closely as we have for me and you both for the course of the last couple of seasons, personally there in person, you were there with us in spring training. To see these guys up close and then to see it permeate for them as well into real life on TV right in front of your eyes that, hey, these guys are making history. Even though it's only one guy tonight, that's pretty cool. I kind of ingest, at the start of every year, I'm like, okay, it's going to happen sometime that the Marlins are going to hit for the cycle. And I always kind of try to pick out or pinpoint one guy in the back of my mind. I'm like, I think it's going to be that guy to do it. And I did not have it as Arraez this year. I actually had it as Jazz, but Arraez gets it.
Me too.
I just doubted the home run is really what it was. And then, like I said, for the way that he got this home run, his opposite field home run, which he does not go that way very often, especially for power, is very impressive. He just had it all tonight, man. And it all came together for him. I'm glad in that last at bat, I'm like, oh my God, it's only the single. And I think we were all kind of primed for a letdown for him not to get it. So then when he actually got it, it's like, what? So the excitement was that much better because we're used to them just leaving it at one hit and not getting it. But it's super cool, man.
Sure.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, they've been close a bunch, and it was just, you kind of, it's like during the one part where, like, I think I wasn't, watching tonight. I got the alert, for the home run. I'm reading my oldest, for a bedtime story, and I see the home run alert, and then I'm just like, oh shit, we're live. This is alive. I'm doing the the math in my head, like, single. He just needs a single on there, and this is Luis Arraez who needs a single. There, so I'm doing the math in my head, like, can I finish put down? Can I get them into the? I gotta get back in front of the TV.
Yeah, like the second most singles in baseball last year. He had, I think, like something like that. So, like, won the batting title, of course. So the one hit that he absolutely can get is the single. But I'm sitting there in that, it was the eighth inning or whatever,
sure.
and I'm like, all right, it's probably going to be another Marlins moment where we just get let down again. But then he got it, and it was just so much better. It took 30 years, but man, the payoff was worth it. So this was super cool. The last team in Major League Baseball to get it. It took that long, but they have it now. So no more being that one team, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're off the schneid on the cycle. We've done everything now. We gotta well out ahead. Do you, just kind of capping off the cycle thing? I mean, do you remember, like, any other times that you were, I guess, most excited, like most in the moment? I mean, you're right. With taking 30 years to do it, it's obviously a rich text of us having it yanked away from us at the last minute, like Charlie Brown with the football. But just to you, like, what were some, like, so close cycles that stand out, burned into your memory until tonight? I mean, we're expunging it.
Yeah, I mean, they called it out on the broadcast a couple of times, and they kind of brought him back to mind. But the UGLA one, I think it was like 06 or 07, something like that, where he was just one single away. He had the home run, he got the double and triple. The triple's the hardest one to get. He got it, and then all he needs is a single, and doesn't do it. The Willingham one, I remember kind of.
Yes,
well.
I had that for mine.
Yeah, the Willingham one I remember where he needed the single. The Sheffield one, I was just a kid. I saw that one on the broadcast as well. But if there was one guy that was going to do it, Sheffield is definitely a possible. And that was in the second year of the franchise. There were multiple other moments where other guys needed other hits, but they were harder to get. Some guys needed the home run. Some guys needed the triple. Like I said, the triple's the hardest one to get. But when it comes down to a single, you kind of want to see it. And I had recalled the UGLA game, the Willingham game as well. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I think there were a couple of Hanley games mixed in as well. I think he had the single. He needed some of the harder hits. So those kind of stick out to me as well, that when he needed them and he didn't get them. So, I mean, man, like I said, it took forever. It took 30 years and 4,700 games. But, man, this payoff was totally worth it. And I really like Arraez, man. This Pablo trade, I know we all miss Pablo. Pablo was great tonight as well.
He's having a great season. But.
Yeah, he's doing amazing for I almost said Pensacola, geez. Minnesota, sorry. And okay. Val. But yeah, doing great for Minnesota. I think he had 10 strikeouts tonight, so he's been amazing for them as well. But it's just one of those trades that's a win-win, man. I mean, both teams made out so well. Marlins got what they needed. They needed a guy at the top of the lineup. Twins needed a starting pitcher. They got him. So cool to see this trade pay off in both ways, and cool to see Pablo still doing well and Arraez making history. It's super cool, man.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a win-win trade as long as we start getting some of those win trades on the Marlins side. With the other no-hitters, I had the Willingham one. I remember watching that during, I think it was like during my office hour while teaching middle school, and it's like glued to like the early version of like ESPN's Gamecast box, or just staring at the outline of Josh Willingham when I was supposed to be grading. papers. And the other one that stands out for me was Justin Bour in 2016. It was the in the game after Jose Fernandez passing. Bour was a homer away, in his last at bat, and so that's one that always stood out to me. But you're right, it's so many. I forgot about the Uggla one. I loved Uggla back then, so that was a lot of moments where I was so close and just won the single. It was amazing to see. Woke a kid up tonight. Had to. Like, what are you yelling about? It's too hard to explain. Just like something hasn't happened while Daddy's been alive. He's excited. I'm owed, right? And that was the nod of approval from the kid. But okay, so got the cycle. Awesome. The couple. So now we're posed for a split in the series. So in the season sense, Marlins, get the win tonight. It's a weird series. Pretty much both aces have faltered in this series. Sandy, unfortunately, spectacularly so last night, and Arraez No, you kind of bump in the road. Not a great start for him tonight. So it comes down to Cabrera tomorrow. Finding himself and finding the strike zone against Zach Wheeler. Unfortunately, so that's not feeling great about that one. I think I predicted the Marlins would have one win in this series, but if they win, then the Marlins win somehow, then they're 6-7 after having faced three teams that are expected to make the playoffs in 4 series. But it kind of feels like a tipping point. If they lose this series, then they're 5-8, only one game worse. But it just kind of seems like the reaction on the verdict on the season to date is going to go massively in either direction based on the outcome of one game, which seems a little crazy. But where's your head at?
Yeah, you're right. So early in the season, and there's reaction all over the place when they win tonight, of course, and then with the history you see as well. You see everybody's all about the Marlins, and then they could come back tomorrow and Cabrera could walk another 6 guys, and the Marlins could lose, and then we're going to go in the other direction. So there's a lot of very drastic opinions at this point in the season. What I would say for Edward is what you want to see is just for him to regain his control. That's what's most important for him, whether he allows runs or not. He just needs to find the strike zone again. This guy's got to get further back in the strike zone. He needs to, I think, use his fastball a lot more. He's really gotten away from that. Interesting why. I've went through that in a couple of other places. But yeah, the guy needs to refine his fastball, refine his control over his breakers. And I think a tipping point for that, you talk about tipping points, I think a tipping point for that will be, if you can throw those easy pitches for strikes and those early count easy fastballs for strikes, your breaking pitches will come to you. And then even if they're not in the zone, you have the deception and stuff to make them be strikes because of swings and misses. So this is a guy that it is very interesting at this point in his career. Even though it's early in the season, I would say with all of that the Marlins have coming starting pitching wise, this is the make or break year for him as a starter for this team at least. And maybe they could maybe move him. I'm not saying they will. If they decide to move him because they have minor leaguers coming, they could make him a reliever. If not, this is definitely a usable arm. But man, this year for him as a starter, I think is a telltale sign. So each start is important, and I think it starts and continues tomorrow. So can't see more of these 6-7 walk games, 5 walk games that he's had. That's going to be really important for him. So I think I would agree with you, though, that I did not have the Marlins winning this series, and the fact that they have a chance to do it tomorrow is great.
Do you think he will find that control? Like, I'm flashing back to the offseason. I think you and I both contributed to a piece for one of the Cardinals sites, C70, and I want to say you and I were both high on Cabrera in that.
Yeah.
Do you think he figures this out, or how surprised have you been by the control struggles to this point? Because he's still so young and raw.
I'm honestly not that surprised that he struggled this much with his. A little bit, because 5 and 6 walk games are like, what's happening? You have no control over anything. But like I said, it permeates from the fastball. That was his strength when he was in the minor leagues. It was what he built his minor league career off of, was a very high velo fastball, and then of course good breaking pitches. And he still has good breaking pitches, but when you can't throw your easiest effort pitch for a strike, you have to throw high effort pitches, and that's going to wear on your arm and wear on your stamina and just wear on your overall ability to be effective. So he needs to get the easy effort pitches over for strikes, which is his fastball, and then rely on his breakers and stuff with breaking pitches. And like I said, it's been interesting to see his growth in Major League Baseball, because I think like only a couple starts into his career, I had asked him, I'm like, yo, you threw a ton of changeups tonight. Like, where were you with that? And he wasn't effective in that start either. I was like, did you have the fastball? Or were you not confident? He was like, no, I just kind of felt throwing my changeup tonight. I feel like I had that pitch the best. that's not the pitch that got you here. The pitch that got you
Right.
to where you're at is your fastball. So it's interesting to see that that he's kind of getting away from what was his biggest strength, and that he doesn't really have much interest in throwing it again. So I don't know. Just the selection and the terms of like how he's used his pitches here recently in his big league career is definitely a product of interest for me. I'm not saying he's wrong for doing that. Maybe he's being coached that way, but it's interesting. If he is being coached that way, it would be interesting to me to know why. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what I would say. I want to see more fastball, man. I got to see him throw the fastball is what I want from him.
Anytime someone tinkers or something that that did work, I do start to worry a little bit. You see someone coming off, particularly and like off an award-winning season or a great year, and then it's like, oh yeah, I thought I'd play, I thought I'd fiddle. It's like, why would you do this thing? And I think just one off the cuff. I think back to Trevor going into last season. It's like I decided to mix with my mix going into the year, like, but
like, yeah, not necessarily not high on him. I would agree with you. I was high on him going into the season, but he's got to get back to throwing that fastball for strikes, bro.
Hope he does it. All right, so a couple of your thoughts on the year. What did you think of the lineup tonight? I mean, for me, I thought this was kind of the best lineup I've seen this season. Honestly, I love to see Fortes get more playing time over Stallings. Putting him 2 nights ago, I think I joked we're a Fortes start away from this being the best possible lineup we've seen, and then Fortes was put in tonight, and that made it the case. Big game from Yuli Gurriel. I mean, I don't necessarily think he can physically hold up, but just if he can recapture some of that and just be part of the mix, alternating between first and DH. Love seeing him in there. Don't love the reason that Avi wasn't in the lineup, but the result of him not being in the lineup, and more at bats for Soler, for Gurriel. It's just it's been working in terms of he certainly seems to has the potential to do so. And then of course the flip at the top with Jazz now leading off, Arraez at third. Saw Craig Mish tweet this out while I was looking up fun no-hitter stats. 34 hits in 3 games for the Marlins since Jazz started leading off and Arraez started hitting third. What do you think this lineup could end up sticking where we saw tonight? Kind of more in terms of the Gurriel and Fortes part, but
yeah, sure. I definitely could. I mean, I guess Jazz got his wish. He said on Twitter himself that he doesn't think he's a cleanup hitter, and I would agree with that. I don't mind him leading off at all. He has the tools to do it. He has the tools to get on base with the bat, and then he also has the tools to get on base with his patience. So I do not mind him as the leadoff hitter at all. I did like Arraez as the leadoff hitter early in the season because I think he's the best on-base threat that they have. Is him hitting third the worst thing in the world? I don't think so at all, because I think third should be your best hitter, and he's been the best hitter this season. So I like that Skip has the mindfulness to say, okay, this isn't working. I'm not going to wait, and I'm going to switch it up. So I like that. I really do. I don't like we went through the Mattingly years, and no knock on Don Mattingly, but Don Mattingly would stick with things that weren't working, right? He would stick with things time and time again, and they weren't working. And they clearly weren't working, but he still did it. So that's that old time feel of do it till it works. I don't like that line of thinking. Guys will adjust, maybe just do it till it works. That's a developmental way of thinking. Skip is the winning way of thinking and knowing that, hey, this is not working right now. These guys aren't performing where they're at. I'm not going to wait, and I'm going to switch it up until I find a winning way. And I think that's exactly the difference between Donnie and Skip. And like I said, no knock on Donnie, love the guy. But there's a clear difference in thinking in between these two managers. They're going to switch things up when they think it's necessary, and they're going to do it immediately. So I think that's a good way of thinking. It's a winning way of thinking, and it's a more advantageous way of thinking for a team that needs to win right now. So, yeah, I like this lineup tonight. Nick Fortes, man, if there's a way to get that guy in the lineup every day, you got to do it because, man, he fills a hole that another catcher on this team leaves there, and I won't say the name, but yes, we'll see what happens with that.
Do you think that change gets made in the? Let's just make the question. Do you think that change gets made in the first half? Like he's the he who must not be named is Sandy's personal catcher, and I'm fine with him doing. I'm fine with him doing the Paul Bacco role. Like I'm okay if he plays 1 out of 5 games.
I hate that. I hate that honestly. I honestly do. This is a team that struggles to score runs, and you're leaving a hole in your lineup with Jacob Stallings. I mean, it just is what it is, man. Like the guy. My question would be for Skip and the rest of the coaching staff. My question for them would be, what is there that Jacob Stallings does for Sandy that Nick Fortes cannot do? And that's an interesting question to be posed. So I know Stallings is here. I know that he's getting paid. I know that they traded to get him, which of course they need to maximize on that investment. It's definitely true. But man, if you leave a hole in the lineup for a team that struggles to score runs and you have a guy staring you in the face that can advantageously, or at least more so, fill that hole, I think you got to go to that guy. So the question is interesting. I think the question would be, how long can they continue to do this and leave this hole in the lineup when they have a fix? Maybe not a perfect fix, but they have a fix that's right there. They just need to give him time with Sandy, man, and he hasn't gotten it. So I hate the personal catcher thing. I personally really detest that, but they think it works. I don't know. I think that's one of the more interesting questions on the team right now.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, if that's the cost to get Fortes in the lineup, there's other 4 nights, which would still be an improvement. Then like that, I could, I can go to bed happier. With that reality. Do you think they'd make that much of a commitment, or do you think that there's still this entrenched vision that Stallings is like the best catcher for all of them? Like, just you've had a chance to talk to more coaches than I have, obviously, or players. Do you think they would move him out of the starting catcher role?
I mean, I think he already
in the first half.
Oh yeah, no, I think he kind of already is out of the starting role. I think if you needed to point to one guy and say, okay, this guy's a starting catcher, Fortes starts more games than Stallings, or has at least, or should. So I would think that Fortes would be the starting catcher on the team right now, and then if there is such a thing as a backup, it would be Jacob Stallings. But he's going to play. He's got to play, obviously. But I wouldn't make him this stringent, okay, he has to catch Sandy every 5 days. I would just make him the guy that you mix in, honestly. That would be the route that I would like to see them go. I don't think he's a bad player. I think it would be a fine backup when Fortes does eventually need a rest. But I just don't see a ton that Stallings does that Nick Fortes does not do. So, and obviously Fortes is a much better offensive player. So for a team that, like I said, really struggles to score runs. So will they do it? Will they move off of leaving Stallings as, I guess, the personal catcher for Sandy in the first half? I would say doubtful. They still have to get the maximization on. They still have to maximize their investment on Stallings, and they traded players to get this guy. So, and they're paying him. So they're going to still start him, I think, for the first half, but it's going to get tougher and tougher to defend if Stallings keeps doing what he's doing this year.
Well, hopefully they make the change, because I think I love Nick Fortes more with every at bat.
Yeah, absolutely.
that he delivers. Hi. Other things. So I've had this thought twice. Just as we kind of watch here, we've had 2 kind of injury scares this season. I guess we had the big one. We've had the big one of Jazz. The other day when on that stinger, and then just last night, with trainers going out to check on Sandy. These 2 moments where you're catching your breath and thinking, for some, well, that's the year, right there. But then both times I thought that, we kind of bounced back with thinking that actually, no, at least in terms of how the Marlins can operate. Just kind of figured this is just like if those injuries had transpired, they've been long-term things, and it was just going to be this kind of suck it up buttercup moment for Bruce Sherman. I was like, the team has to try to at least be seen to be trying to compete this year. Like they're not in a position to be able just to throw dirt on the season a couple weeks into April. Like when Jazz went out, I'm like, well, okay, I guess we're trading Jacob Berry and Braxton Garrett for Ramon Laureano tomorrow, because they're going to need to do something. I don't know if that's a permutation. Like they're going to have to do something quickly to make up that gap. Like, do you have the same sense? Like, do you think this is kind of just like a make or break season for the Marlins? Like, really make some inroads on being perceived to be competitive to improve. Whether we think they're going to have a winning season, that's a different conversation. But no,
I don't know if, well, I guess it's easy to say every year's a make or break season for the Marlins, because they seem to let fans down year after year, and in that regard, they need to try to pull fans back in. So, of course, by winning baseball games, I would say I would agree with you. I would definitely say it's a make or break season, especially in terms of the career of Kim Ng as a general manager in the last year of the contract. they got to do. She knows it, and she knows it. They have to do something. They have to show at least that, hey, this is going to work, right? Like our way of thinking will work. If it doesn't work this season and they don't win the World Series, which of course is very doubtful per many people, including myself, they have to prove that hey, we can make it work in the shorter term and not in the longer term. So yeah, man, I would agree with you. Like I had a lot weighing this season on the ability of Avi and Soler to bounce back. Avi, we haven't seen it yet. Soler, we've seen moments that he can make it work, right? But man, that was kind of what it was weighing on. They made those 2 acquisitions last year. These are the guys that they need to bounce back. They tried to build kind of around them, I would say, by bringing in these more contact-oriented hitters like Luis Arraez, right?
Which is another feather in her cap to this point.
Yeah. So she's tried to build it. She's learned from the mistakes of, okay, we're only going after power guys. Now she's kind of going, okay, that didn't work. Now I need to get these more contact-oriented guys so that they can get on base in front of these guys because we have so much trouble scoring runs, right? So it's not, and this offseason I think was her best for sure for Kim, even though she got a late start on it, which I didn't like, but she got a late start on it. But at the end of it, it was good. You know, it wound up good, right? Overall, they could have done more, yeah, but it wound up pretty good. So I think she's shown that she can learn from her mistakes. But yeah, I would agree with you, man, that this is a big year for her, big year for this team, and showing this fan base that they can win baseball games. And it's kind of been mixed so far at the early start of the season. Last night was not good. Tonight was very good. So I think you kind of see it going both ways, which, you know, it's going to happen. They're going to have duds and they're going to have games where they do very well. So yeah, that's baseball, man. And I think overall, what I would say to your point is, yeah, it's a very important year, a very transitional year for this franchise, because if they don't do anything this year, where do they go? And that'll be an interesting thing to talk about if that happens. So yeah, definitely agree. It's a big year for the franchise. It's a big year for Kim and for Bruce. So we'll see, man. I mean, Bruce has got to make money at some time, right? I would say he's probably losing money from his investment into this team as well. So that goes into it too. So.
Yeah, so big year, and just hope you'd love to see some wins sort of get strung together. You know, some consistency on the highs and leading into other highs, and not just kind of back to some of those lows. So yeah, again, it kind of comes down to tomorrow, and it kind of as is my last point. It's such an early season. I mean, do I have some small concerns that could become big concerns? Sure, but I think my first moment where I might break the panic glass a little bit would be on this third turn through the rotation, the bottom of the rotation that we're about to come up on. Been reading what's the name? If they don't win, it's a shame. On there, I had a great Jim Leland quote, and they're about just how your season's success is tied. You want 2 out of 3 from your top 3 starters, and then just you split with your bottom 2, and you're fine. You do that over the course of the season. You're a 600 ball club. And do I think the Marlins will be a 600 ball club? That's not what I'm saying. But so Sandy and Jesus Luzardo feel pretty confident that more often than not they're going to be amazing there. But it's the bottom end has been a little more questionable to the extent to which we've gotten the production we need to from that crew. So this third time through for the Edward Cabrera and Trevor Rogers portion, if this doesn't go well, if the Marlins don't win a game again until the next time Sandy or Jesus Luzardo, pitch, then that's going to worry me a little bit. I think that'd be my first time if we have 3 whiffs going through the rotation without them helping out. That would be my first point of concern, since the starting pitching was supposed to be the bedrock. And if it's actually just 2 guys that are good, it's going to feel a lot like last year. And would be the first thing that would really concern me in 2023. What about you? Would you kind of looking at it the same way? And if not, is there another thing that you're panicking about at this point?
No, you're right. I mean, we saw 8 runs tonight, I think. So I mean, it's still a team that outside of tonight, it's still a team that is going to need to lean on their starting pitching, at least from what we've seen so far, because they still can't consistently score runs. And if that's not there 4 out of your 5 days, like maybe you have a dud mixed one time in there. We saw Sandy last night struggle. It happens. He's a human being, right? So it is what it is. But then when that happens, it's just such a big deal that, like, oh my God, Sandy struggled and we lost, and now we're screwed for the rest of the series because we can't count on the rest of the rotation, right? Like, no, the strength of this team is starting pitching. They need to be able to lean on it. And if Edward and Trevor aren't the guys that they can lean on, there are others that they can go to. Some of those are much younger pitchers
Yep.
that they need to work on completing their development. So what my hope would be is that they don't rush those guys into big league time because they're so desperate to win. So I don't think they will. I think they understand the balance of the major league level and the minor league level. There are guys down there that they can come up and contribute right now. Yeah. But are they going to be interrupted and halted in their development if they do that? And the answer to that is also yes, because they still have things to work out. So we hear Yuri Perez and Dax Fulton and all of these guys that we're so excited about, they need time. So they still need time. They're still young kids. They're very good, but they still need time. Unfortunately, Meyer is injured. Eater is also injured now as well. So, I mean, like you said, though, your point is good, that they need to be able to rely on their strengths, which is starting pitching. And that's going to be, like, you can count on Sandy and you can count on Luzardo, but these guys need to show, Trevor and Edward really need to show that you can count on us to give you guys quality innings. That's going to make that along with the rebounding of Avi and Soler, which we talked about, is going to be the make or break it for this season for Miami. So hope against hope that these guys can find it. I think Trevor, has had his good times and his bad times. I think overall this year he's been pretty okay. Edward, from what he's shown early in the season, really got some stuff to figure out. So yeah, the rotation is going to be big time, man. And like you said, third time through, I think this is like the time where you're like, okay, yeah, one or two bad starts, get in there and show it. And I think it's not now or never, but these games are important, man. Like every game here counts. I don't care that it's the beginning of the year and there's 162. These games count.
It all matters. It all adds up. You'd love to see. We've said for years we want them to get that fast start, and that we've been waiting for that for some time.
Yeah,
and I guess the pitcher we didn't mention is Johnny Cueto. He was that other security blanket. We had Cueto in front of the Braxton Garretts and Dan Castanos of the world, and so now Cueto's down, and we're at the Garrett Castano point, both of whom I have total confidence in as a fifth starter. But if my concern would then be if we're looking at them as kind of sort of the number three,
the problem
starter. If there continue to be bumps in the road, but I think they figure it out.
The Cueto thing, really quick. The Cueto thing, I understand why they did it. I really do. They wanted a veteran guy to shore up the back end. They didn't want to have to rely on these more swingman guys like Castano and Braxton, even though Braxton was very good last year, and I think he could be okay in that position. The way that he's pitched so far and the way that he even looked in spring, which was not good, I don't think you can count on him for much. And it sucks to say that, but I really don't think this guy has anything left. I think he's done. Personally, that's my opinion. I would say I would hope. I hope he gets back and gets healthy, but I would hope not to see him in the rotation again.
Okay. Well, certainly, from a fan perspective, I hope you're wrong. For no other reason than we could use Garrett to maybe get some hitting help at the at the break. But if not, then we're going to certainly need. Then I'm really glad we got Dan Castano back. If Johnny Cueto is cooked, we're going to need that help. But still. But all right, so good talk. Just 4,700 games, got a cycle, and just really, that's all I have to say. For the Marlins tonight, give it a couple more games. I'll some more criticisms might start to trip back out, but just right and high and why to come out and talk about it. So thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, man, it's a good night. I know we all have our takes and our opinions. I gave you a couple of mine tonight, so thank you for having me on. But tonight's a good night, man. I think we can enjoy the rest of the night, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But there's always something to talk about on this Marlins team, and it's a pleasure to always join you and talk about it. So thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Thanks for coming on, and so we'll catch you next time on Marlins After Dark. Have a good night. Go Fish.